Hey guys, this is Mecrow here. I wanted to do kind of an update video on where I've been at, which should be obvious by this, and kind of why I'm here. So I have been playing Throne in Liberty for about a month and a half at this point. I have an issue with myself where I don't like to make content about games unless I'm decent at the game, because I have a pet peeve where streamers will make content about games, not know anything, tell you an opinion, and send it out to a bunch of people when they're totally unqualified. So I got to endgame gear in this game, spent about $50, which I know some people care about that, and it wasn't that bad to do from a free-to-play standpoint. Like, not free-to-play, but like, I guess Dolphin, I think is the technical term standpoint. But I wanted to talk about why I've been playing this game instead of New World. The short answer of this is I view New World at this point as a seasonal social MMO with very limited to no endgame content. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. By social MMO, I mean the main thing you do to log on to New World with is you like to hang out with people that you know. It's kind of a game to do stuff with other people, whether it be like chest runs, raids, uh, you know, guild content, company content. We're doing 50v50 wars. If you're doing influence races, like all of that stuff is just about like bringing people together, right? That's what New World fundamentally is. I'd argue New World is less of a like content driven game at this point. And while they call it like an ARPG, and I think it has some similar systems to ARPGs, I fundamentally would still call New World social MMO. Social MMOs are also a little bit notorious for not having as much endgame content. I think that Throne of Liberty, on the other hand, I'd still call it a social MMO to an extent, but it actually has like a very significant amount of endgame content. And I took some notes on some stuff just to compare the two, and I can kind of go through them real quick. But New World's endgame has like realistically about 5 activities. You have wars, you have raids, you have OPR, well, not even 5. It's wars, raids, OPR. I'd say the mutations aren't even an endgame activity at the moment because they don't give you endgame gear. You have like the market more or less, which you could play, and you have transmog. Like it's like those 4 main things, and then like artifacts are a thing, but realistically for artifacts, there's only about like 5 armor artifacts that are ever used, and there's way more than those printed. And the weapons actually have a good amount of variety. The jewelry does not have a ton of variety, and they're all like locked behind the PvP track, right? So it's like it's not really a great endgame experience because there's not many avenues to actually acquire better options of like gear. And like I'm counting wars and OPRs towards this. War and OPR don't give you endgame gear. It's literally just raids and the PvP island, which at this point is just no one's there. It's just completely dead. It was a complete flop, complete failure on the prioritization from AGS's part. Once again, not delivering an OPR map for the past 3 years, and not looking to. Seems like they're trying to delay doing what the community wants as long as possible, and it is what it is. Uh, they have had some success, I think, in the past where there's limited content in New World, where New World strives a lot, is the war system was relatively good, and people like to play it a lot, or at least that's my opinion. So a lot of players that have been playing since the start will typically warlog. I don't even have fun warlogging at the moment in New World because there is a fundamental bug where if you respawn on defense, for some reason there's like a minute long load screen no matter what time it is in the war, when it's supposed to be like very specific load screen timers. Like a complete oversight from AGS's standpoint. And what this basically means is every single siege for New World has like a 90 to 95% attacker win rate if they get to fort. It is completely unbalanced, completely unfair, and completely tarnishes the mode and makes it unplayable, in my opinion. So that is the main reason why I have been looking away from New World. I think other people have been looking away from New World for other reasons as well. But with that aside, the things that I have liked about Throne of Liberty so much is it's a relatively accessible game to get to end game gear with or without a guild. The first month and a half I played this game, I did not play it within a company. After that, I joined Supple because I know people in Supple and I know they were playing the game, and I thought it would be fun to play with friends, and it is fun to play with friends, and that's great. But it's like you don't necessarily need that to get to the end game stuff, because if you want to get end game gear, if you want to get runes, what they call it in this game, which is a special thing for end game gear right now, you could get it from events. You can get it from these open world bosses. You can get it from basically mutations from New World. It's trials. And like there's other ways to get it as well. Like it's super accessible to get to the end game stuff. You could also, like, if you don't want to play a lot, you could, spend money to get to the end game stuff, but like the gear requirement and the rune requirement from the end game perspective is not super hard. So I just sold a bunch more stuff, just made even more money equivalently. But I think this was higher earlier when I recorded this and kind of failed because the ran out of storage or something like that. But the calculated total, this is like last 100 items that I've sold. In the last month, I've made about like 8 to 10k Lucent. Lucent's the premium currency. About 2,000 of this is worth $20. I think that's a conversion or something like. No, it's 1,000 is worth $20. So it's like, I made like hundreds of dollars worth of this stuff just by playing the game and not really focusing on anything. So it's like, in my opinion, it's a relatively accessible game. And in terms of like end game content, you just have so much to do. Like it's a mobile game first, right? Like that's what this game was built off of. You can very clearly tell that by like how players look, the graphics, the fact that like there's not really projectiles, you have to click on people to target them and whatnot. But you have T1 dungeons, you have T2 dungeons. There's about to be a new zone that's added, which I think is going to get added in about a month and 3 days. And that's going to be another thing that you can do in terms of another layer of the dungeons. There's going to be abyssal contract tokens, which you have, which you could use to farm open world bosses. You have all these events that have a large variety of stuff that you can do every day. So like today, for instance, we had 2 raids that we were doing. Like we did 2 raids with PvP in this area here called Desert Overlord, and it dropped this sword, which is like really cool. It was worth about $1,500 when we got it for our company. So it's like it's like a lot of this stuff is like more accessible than New World is in terms of the end game, and it's like just in general very large variety of stuff that you can do in the end game. I think the critique that some people have for this game is there's so much to do that it's a problem. I wish New World had that problem. New World, I get so bored that I started RPing, and I've never RP'd before I played a New World. This game, there's still RPing if you want to RP. Like, you can totally do that, but like you don't have to do it, and you have stuff to do. So it's like, it just feels better to me. Like, there's actually an end game in this game, which is like crazy to think about. That's not a thing in New World at this point, 3 years into the making, but this game's been out for a month, or maybe a little bit over that, maybe 2-3 months, but it's like we have half the map right now, and the other half of the map hasn't even been released yet. It's like there's kind of so much going on and so much to do that it's almost overwhelming in a sense. You have like, even right now, like you see that it's raining. What happens when it rains in this game? It actually opens up dynamic weather options. So I can go do this dungeon right now when it's raining, and there's certain flanks. So like there's a mode called Siege, which you basically try to take this giant castle over here, which is like super badass, super fun. Probably the thing that people look forward to in this game the most, and it happens once every 2 weeks. Say it's raining, there's a secret underground path through the sewers, and you see how this floods right now? You actually can't access this flank route while it's raining, which is super cool. And there is an ability to actually cast the rain that one person on the server has, and the only way to get that is by having like a very large amount of end-game or in-game participation in a lot of activities. So it's like you have manipulative effects from the weather. You have so many different classes, so many different play styles for the game. You have so many different events to access in the game in terms of like what you can do. It's just like strictly better in the sense of like a content perspective. So I talked about a few of the things, but just to go through my notes and just highlight a few more. So we got Siege, we got Tax Golem, we got World Boss, which has a PvP and a PvE one. So if you want to do it with PvP and fight a boss, you can do that. If you want to do it with just PvE, you can do that as well. Arch Boss, which is the boss I talked about today that we did. Boonstones, which is like you fight over a certain stone. It's basically kind of like a New World War. You fight over an open world area, you get rewards for doing it, and you get bonuses for holding it. Really interesting. There's events, there's challenge dungeons. These give runes, which are used for the end game. They're like mutations, but they actually add in unique effects. They don't just like say that they add in unique effects and like actually don't change the dungeon at all. Like there's actually new mechanics to them. For example, one of the bosses that they had recently has a mechanic where you have to get an order between 1 to 5, and you have to press a certain thing to actually be able to see what order that you're in. And you have a limited amount of those things that you could use, like it's a resource. And with this mutation, like that doesn't work anymore. It only works for one person. Only one person knows what number they are, and you have to figure out all the other ones on the fly, and it just makes it way more chaotic and way more difficult. So there's like a lot of new mechanics with that. We talked about T1, T2 dungeons. We talked about Abyssal. Resistance contracts. This is just kind of like dailies. It's kind of like Gypsum, but actually gives like some decent stuff. There's event PvP, which I done a bit on stream, 6v6. There's 3v3 arenas, which have rankings to them, which New World doesn't even have rankings for 3v3 arenas right now. There's practice wars or war games, which I believe I'm going to be starting one in 5 minutes here. So incredible timing there. But you can actually do practice wars in this game, which is a crazy concept that New World still doesn't have. And you can join the practice wars either with a company or you can just join a public one just to learn how stuff works. So it's really, really interesting way to kind of get involved with stuff. And then, of course, there's the market, which you can make the equivalent of, like, you know, IRL money, except it's in the game. Like, you can, that's stuff that I like to mess around with a lot. And there's transmog and RPing again, just like New World. So it's like, from my perspective, I think this game has infinitely better as a game overall. The only thing it lacks at is maybe the combat could be, like, the combat could be better. Like, the combat in New World is better, but you could tell from this game that if it had New World's combat, there is no way in hell it would run this well with so many people. So in this game, I've had, like, 1,000 people fighting each other at the same time in the same area, and it actually runs with over, like, 40-50 FPS, which in New World would be, like, you'd crash out. Like, you would crash instantly and not be able to do anything. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's actually super, super well optimized, and you just can do so much. So, I don't know. That's where I've been. I've been playing Throne of Liberty. Didn't think I'd be a fan of this game, to be honest. Started this game, was like, you know, friends are playing this game. I guess I'll try it. But it doesn't look like the game for me, just because it's like a Korean MMO, and I generally don't like those. But kind of been surprised, and I'm happy for it. So it's been pleasant. I would recommend trying it if you haven't tried it. I believe that we're in the T1 area, right? Which is, I talked about earlier, is like half the map. The T2 area, I believe, is going to be coming out on February 7th. There's a lot of YouTubers that don't know this that play the game because I don't think they really pay attention to, like, kind of the minute details. But if you look at the battle pass, there's often in games you can figure out a lot of stuff from battle passes. So typically with this game, when you buy one of these token things, they last for 45 days. The difference now is they don't actually last for 45 days. It says they last until the regular maintenance on February 7th, 2025. So I believe that T2 area is coming out on February 7th, 2025, which is in a month and 3 days. And it's just like, that's opening up like literally half the game that hasn't been unveiled yet, and there's more to that that's also being added. So it's like, content of this game's actually being regularly updated. It's not happening once a year. A lot less bugs. Still are some bugs, but a lot less exploits actually get patched. People that are caught cheating, in terms, like, say you use GTG and you buy Lucent or something like that. The way that they deal with it in this game is, okay, well, however much you bought with GTG, we're just going to make that negative, and you're going to have to pay us back. So it's like, it's kind of has an anti-cheater vibe. Generally a lot better. Still some issues with this game, but like for every issue I think I have with this game, New World has about 5 to 10 more. And New World has been out for a lot longer period of time and still feels significantly less polished. So props to these devs, because they're actually doing a relatively good job with the amount of time that they've been launched. And I think most of the bugs that have been introduced have been due to, like, modifying stuff and not checking it between the NA and Korea versions. But it's been pleasantly surprising, and I would recommend people check it out. It's a pretty awesome world, and I think it's, the population of this game is declining, but it's not declining super fast, if that makes sense. And they're adding in catch-up mechanics to, like, basically XP boosters when tier 2 comes out, and that will help people that are starting late catch up. But I started a month or two late, and I was able to catch up within about a month, so it's like, it's not that hard to do. And it's been relatively enjoyable. And with that being said, if you guys want to check it out, I have been trying to stream more, hit the button more, and I'll have more content on that, and as well as I'll probably make some, like, guides for early game stuff, because I just got through that, and maybe some kind of end game guides. Like, I have some, like, farming spots that not a lot of people know about and people complain about not being able to get a certain resource, and I haven't really seen much content put towards them, so I think I could help a few people out with that, as well as, like, optimization, because I'm just generally good at that in games. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.